If you want to know what makes a villain truly villainous, then stay tuned.
Welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie authors on their journey to publication. I'm Jamie Hirschberger, and I'm incredibly late this morning. I apologize. I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols.
I'm Jennifer Carl Tong, and I write historical Christian romance, and this time it's not my fault. It's always my fault. It is always me that is the problem. Yeah. So I'm actually really pleased today, Jamie.
Well, I'm so sorry to have kept everybody waiting, but if you don't know, I do have to pay my bills with a good old day job. And when I join you, it is my lunch break. And I was delayed because of an emergency at work that I had to be a part of, putting out a fire. So I do appreciate your patience with us as we are starting a little bit delayed. Hopefully we can still get through our topic. And so to that end, good morning, everybody. And thank you for joining us, Catherine, Piper, and Purpose Behind the Pen. I see you all in the chat, our friends who are so happy that we were able to go live after all. And Jen, what's up with you this week?
Well, it was a disaster to begin with, Jamie. It's not entirely you. Because
okay.
For those of you who are not one of our patrons, we had our Patreon live Q&A this week when we normally would have our staff meeting, our planning meeting. And so I did some work beforehand. So we're like, Jamie and I got together. We're like, yeah, the outline looks good. We kind of went over it. We're like, yeah, it's gonna be a great episode. And then I didn't think about it at all. Again, I didn't actually make the stream. We didn't have a description written. We didn't have the graphics done. It was, I don't know what magic bean I thought was going to make the beanstalk that was going to make this all happen. But so this morning I come in and I did my writing and I'm like, all right. Oh, here's the other thing. I wrote yesterday quite a bit. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to time myself. I'm going to do my writing today so that I'm a little bit more relaxed tomorrow morning. Right. Forgetting that our theme wasn't words or anything. It was an actual theme. We had to actually think something we had to do. So then I had to come in and write this morning, which I'm actually really glad that I did. Then I went to go into the stream and there wasn't a stream. So anyway, this has been a comedy of errors today, and that's okay because like Jamie always says, we're homemade.
Yes.
We're not professionals. So.
All right. Well, my what's up is really I really have nothing to say, honestly. I mean, well, I guess I could say this, and I don't want to derail us too much because we're short on time, but I will just say, trying to deal with vehicles, and Jennifer, I know you understand the pain, just the whole trying to figure out what you want to do as far as, do you want to finance something? Do you want to pay cash? And all that is one thing. And then actually trying to do a deal is like another thing. And honestly, I think I'm just turning into a disposable car person. Go buy a car for under 10 grand, drive it until it's too expensive to fix, go buy another car for under 10 grand, because I feel like then you don't have to finance, then you don't have to go to the dealership and endure that nightmare of, let me go talk to my manager, instead of just getting their bottom line. Like, the whole thing is horrible. It's just a horrible, horrible thing. And so anyway, my one of two very, very old cars is currently being repaired, and the other one is going to have to go right in after it. But I won't be making a car payment, and I won't be, wondering if I made the right choice or whatever for another however long, year or two or something.
Honestly, I think, Jamie, that is the best thing that you can do, honestly. Like, I am a big Dave Ramsey fan. I love what he talks about. When he goes to buy a car, he just pulls cash out of his pocket when they're trying to do the whole, let me go talk to my manager. And he's just like, starts counting the cash, because cash is king, right? Like, I have the money right now. You give me the deal I want, or I'm walking across the street to the next dealer, right? But it's still, I'm just not that personality. I hate car shopping. So I get it. I absolutely get it. But I'm a disposable car person too. And it has worked very well for us. And if you do the math, like you're going to come out farther ahead in the long run, like with towards retirement and the money that's in your bank. And so,
Well, and what's really the clincher is, believe it or not, I have a car dealership that will work on my European cars like within a $20 Lyft ride. So I really am fortunate that way because in my tiny little market, like you have to drive out to Ocala or somewhere else to usually get that. So, I mean, it's not the end of the world, especially because I have the other one to drive around as long as I don't kill it, you know,
right.
get around broken. So,
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, in our chat, real quick, Catherine Carroll says that she got words on the page this week. Woo! Good for you, Catherine.
Ooh, yeah. Did she? I wonder how the dictation worked out for her.
Oh yeah. And Purpose Behind That Pen says that she's having one heck of a morning between job number one and getting ready for school. She's already over today. She's in the same boat as us. However, she's almost done with chapter one of a new work in progress. Good for
She's
you.
so prolific. It's crazy.
It is
Prolific
crazy.
purpose behind the pen if she needs another P. Okay, because we're running so late, why don't we jump into our topic, Jen? And
Sounds great.
today we're talking about villains in general, and particularly we're talking about writing the villain and whether or not they can be redeeming if they can actually point someone to Christ.
I think they very much can. All right,
Hmm.
conversation done.
Let's discuss. Oh, it's over, right?
All right.
Well, but what makes a villain a villain?
So a protagonist is not always a villain. Let's start there. Villains are generally the protagonist, though I suppose you could write it in a way that they aren't the protagonist. But I'm sorry, antagonist. Sorry. I guess I should be looking at the notes instead of just, freewheeling it.
Well,
Um,
that's helpful because like sometimes I feel like my story doesn't have a quote unquote villain, but sometimes it can be like the government system, or it can be
right.
right, like something a little less point on the nose.
I was thinking about our conversation in the live Q&A, and somebody brought up Gone with the Wind, and who is the villain in that? Honestly, Scarlet is both the antagonist and the protagonist, right? Like it's you know, man versus self for sure. She, I believe, often just kind of destroys herself. Also, the war
The
could be the
war,
antagonist in that one. So there's lots of ways, but a villain is kind of, I think, a really fun way to write.
they are
Right.
actively malevolent.
Yes, that's the difference. Exactly. You have protagonist who definitely creates the tension, and the antagonist does the tension and
Mm,
drives the conflict forward. But a villain is for sure malevolent. Like that's their purpose.
mhm.
So okay.
So not every story needs a villain, but every story needs a antagonist.
Yes. Both, let's think of
Okay.
some of the great iconic villains, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
um
Now
Aslan
see,
versus the White Witch. So the White
yeah,
Witch in the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. My kid said this
um,
morning, Jafar.
yeah,
He's
absolutely. And then the bad lion in the Lion King.
yes,
Is it? Yeah,
Scar.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Um, our writing today was supposed to be like rewriting from a villain's perspective, and I actually chose one of my own villains because my girls are like, "You're supposed to write one of your own villains," and I'm like, "Oh, I guess I could." And so
Nice.
I wrote from Beatrice's perspective, and
Well,
I'm very happy
interesting.
that I did. So
Well, and I'm wondering too. I'm glad because, like, I was wondering if we were going to write about the same villain, just because it like was the one that came to me, and I'm just like, oh,
mhm.
that's such an easy one. Everyone will write that, so I'm glad.
I had a hard time. I couldn't think of. I was not inspired at all. And then the minute my kid said that, I'm like, oh, and she's the first one to pop up. So yeah.
So here's the thing: you don't want to write a vanillin. You want to write a villain.
Ooh, that's gonna
You
be a
know what
real.
I mean? So
Yeah.
you need a well-written villain who will
Yes.
like challenge your hero. And
Absolutely.
in the outline it's written so perfectly that will reveal deeper themes and possibly lead to powerful faith moments. Because like
Yes.
when you're confronted with somebody who's a real pain in the neck, your character is revealed, isn't it, Jen?
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, how do you gain faith? like we talk about like how a child has, the Bible says a child has like we should have a childlike faith, because children just believe everything. They have like this faith without having to have any substance underneath it. But adults, we gain our faith through little trials, right? So little
Mm.
things happen and we trust God, and then and we see, oh, I'm glad that we trusted God. And then something a little bit bigger happens and we're able to look back at those littler moments where God came through for us, and then we're able to put even more faith into to God in our harder moments. So,
It's so funny because I feel like you're including me in all of that. And I'm like, or
yeah,
we curse God in our trials and woes. And then when they are over, we repent. And then that's how we grow. Not
I mean,
everybody is good at
that's
trusting
true.
God in their crises. I'm just outing myself, to be honest. And so, but either way, it's the conflict that drives the growth,
Right.
because I'm different from having gone through it. And my relationship with God is different in that way, also.
Hmm.
And if I hadn't really faced the challenges, which we're kind of saying that's what a villain would do in the story, right?
Right. We have lots of
So,
biblical examples too of this. I mean, it's not hard to look like Pharaoh was for sure in Exodus, was for sure a villain. His hardened heart leads to God's power being revealed. Right? So,
mm,
how would God have been able to show himself and his power the same way to the Israelites if Pharaoh hadn't been the villain in that story?
well, and that's interesting because David was a villain when he sent Bathsheba's wife to go and be murdered, right?
Yes. Yes. So,
Mm,
but then did he get redeemed? Yes, he did. So that's a great
yeah,
example too.
yeah.
Judas
Mm,
Iscariot, would we be sitting here as Christians if there wasn't the character, not character, the person, but we're talking writing. So the
mhm,
character Judas
mhm.
Iscariot, like there had to be the villain that was going to turn Jesus in for God to be able to complete his work through Jesus Christ. Right.
So that's really interesting too, because like I don't know why, as I'm sitting here, I'm just kind of like, what a really handy writing device to have, like this villain to just show up and do terrible things. Like, if you have a favorite soap opera, you for sure have your favorite villain who just
Yeah.
shows up and is just the witchiest person ever. And they are responsible for so much of the delicious plot, right?
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Hmm.
So you
Okay.
mentioned David. It made me think of
Mm.
Saul, later Paul, in
Oh,
the New
yeah.
Testament. Again,
Hmm.
complete villain. But not only was God's purpose being was able to come because of Saul's actions, but the villain was able to be redeemed and then became Paul, who transformed, the church as we know it, through his ministry and his mission work. And so, yeah, so lots of things, lots of great examples in the Bible for how to use villains.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
if you like, okay, so then if you take that and translate it into as you're writing or plotting or brainstorming, you
Hmm.
can see that in your writing, a villain is a good device to reveal some theological truths, right?
Yes.
Like, so
Even if you
you,
don't write Christian, we've talked
right.
about arcs and about have like morals in your story, and for like there to be some sort of lesson that your characters are learning that can be
Hmm.
Christian based, like theological truths, without you stuffing it down their throats, right? Or if you write Christian based fiction, you for sure would use it for that. So like God's sovereignty, clearly that's an obvious one that we could
Yes.
use, because
Yes.
even the worst evil can be used for good. Romans 8:28 tells us that the nature of sin.
Yeah, villains are like you know what I mean, sin walking around,
Yes.
presumably. They
Hmm.
personify temptation and rebellion and the fall of man, or the fallen state of man, rather.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
then it's like, okay, so then there's this whole do we want justice for the villain? Do we want mercy for the villain? Is this villain in need of villain? Is this villain in
But
need of redemption? Or like is judgment, like it's so funny, you watch
right.
an action movie and the best part of the action movie is when the guy who's been tormenting everybody for the whole movie finally dies, and it's always this big scene, and they think of like artistic ways for it to be, I'm finally getting my vengeance. But does it always need to be that? Or do some villains need to be redeemed? And
Mm-hmm.
it's so funny how it feels like the permeation of, but the villain's really a nice guy after all, in the culture has really intensified to where it kind of like it's maybe going to swing back to be the old fashioned, no, I'm going to get my revenge on the villain. Like there's a decision to make there, right?
Yeah, and I think that you have if it's well written, it can be fine, but if it's a device you're overusing, if every villain is redeemed, then
Yeah.
there's a show that my girls and I watch on Netflix and it's mostly clean. So I mean there's no like nudity or anything, but sometimes there's a little bit of like more kissing and like that kind of stuff, then it gets a little too hot and heavy a little bit. But it's called, and there's a huge following, but it's what is it even called? Magnolia, Sweet Magnolias. And we're the point we hate the show because everybody who's bad by the end of either the episode or a couple of episodes, then all of a sudden they're like, um they get redeemed, or they're like, I'm so sorry I was evil and let's be friends now, and then everything's fine, and we're just like over it because it's so unrealistic and it's just so poorly written and poorly acted, right?
Mm,
So but again, the Saul Paul story, great story, clearly it's God's
mm.
story, but so I think that there are places that you would do that would be a good choice for you to redeem your villain, but it's okay to just kill your villain. It's okay.
And then, okay, well, so
You're
if you
not a
don't
bad person.
if you don't have your villain redeemed, okay, can you still use that villain to point to Christ, even if they don't get 100% redemption and become saved, or however you want to phrase it, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, I mean, the whole point is to kind of point out that sometimes grace is necessary. And in
Right.
order to show grace to someone, they have to be a jerk so that, so that
Right.
you can offer the grace. Cause I mean, it's not grace if it's deserved, right?
Right. But again, with our original examples that we shared, Pharaoh was not redeemed and
No.
God was completely shown through that story. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we know that Judas Iscariot was not redeemed, yet
Yeah.
God's work was completed because using
Mm-hmm.
what he meant for evil, God used for good. So
Mm-hmm.
if we follow those kind of rules in our writing, then we're going to write good, well-rounded villains.
Irredeemable but necessary
Right.
villains.
Catherine says that sometimes in a book series, the villain needs to be redeemed slowly over time. A lot of people will stop reading if the villain in book one is the hero in book two. Agreed.
It
What?
feels like that God of the machine thing, the Deus Ex Machina. Oh, suddenly I'm
Mhm.
nice now, right?
Right.
That's too
Exactly.
easy. Hmm.
I mean, Harry Potter's are great. I saw that Piper mentioned Umbridge. She's a great villain. I hate Umbridge in the Harry Potter series. I love to hate Umbridge, but that's it. But the Malfoys, by the end, you're like, I don't know if I hate them or not. Like you hate them, but like there's a little bit of redemption. There's like a light at the end of the tunnel with them, and that was really well written. So
Mm.
okay,
Well,
so
I mean, I think that basically, we're saying that the villain's role is not just to oppose the hero, but to deepen the story's spiritual message, right?
yes, agree.
Okay. So now,
Yes.
how do we make sure we're not writing vanillins? How are we writing effective faith driven villains?
Well, you kind of hinted at it when you called them vanillans. We don't want shallow villains. Like we don't want vanilla,
No.
boring
Mhm.
kind of villains. There has to be something to them. Like we don't want evil just for the sake of evil. First of all, like all of a sudden this person comes in and they're just evil and there's no backstory. That's the other thing too. This writing that we did today is a great kind of practice to get into the mind of your villain, because nobody is evil for evil's sake. Even Judas Iscariot, in his mind, like there are bills to be paid, and Jesus wasn't doing what like he thought he should be doing, and they'll pay us this money and then Jesus can defend himself and then we'll come out on the other end, right? I mean, like I don't know if that's what he was thinking, but you can try to get inside of his head and see, why did he go from being a follower of Jesus to one of the 12 disciples to being the one that kissed him on the cheek? right?
And that's where I think this temptation to redeem the villain comes in, because if you start to write out their side of the story, or you think too hard on like why they are a villain, you start to be like, oh, but they can't help it, they're a villain or whatever. And then you start to get down the path of like they get more empathy, or they're really not so bad after all. I think that maybe that's where this trend is coming from, is because we're doing a lot better job of not just making them, blindly evil for no reason, right?
Right. Right. So, yes, like they believe that they're right. They believe that
Yeah,
they have the
for
right
sure.
motivation.
Mhm.
Some of them might even think that they're serving God. I do believe that Juice
Mm,
Iscariot might have thought that,
mm.
even though, like, deep inside, he was
Sure,
obviously
sure.
off.
Mhm.
But that's why I think it's so important that you have to have depth with your character. They have to have a
Mhm.
backstory. Like, whether
Yeah.
or not you actually write it, you need to give at least your readers a little bit of hint of their backstory. Otherwise, like, again, they're just evil for evil's sake, right? What is motivating them? Why are they making these decisions? Like, so I was trying to think of, so Umbridge, she felt like um she was right in it because everything needed to have order. And if there would just be order, then everything would be so much more smooth, right? And to the
Mhm.
point that she was evil about keeping order.
That
And then,
reminds me, yeah, sorry.
yeah,
That
no,
reminds me of Javert from Les Mis, because
mm,
he is doing what is right. He is
yes,
doing what is right. He's following the letter of the law. And
yes.
yet he finds himself being the villain, and he's just incapable of conceiving why is he the villain when he is doing everything right. It's really interesting.
He's a great example because he really also fits our next point, is that there has to be moments of vulnerability in your villain for them to be a
Mm,
well-rounded villain. And with Javert, they he you see little bits of him, like, that he thinks he's doing right, and then you see little bits of him that there is some compassion in him at times, and then you're like, if you would just open your eyes, Javert, like, if you could just see what we see, the whole story, right? So, but then he'll turn around and just be evil too. Then you're just like, like, do I like him, do I not? Like, that's a really well written villain.
it
Yeah.
really is, and
Hmm.
it's one of the few where you say Javert and people know, like there's not another.
Right. Oh, another great villain that everybody either loves or hate is the Joker in Batman.
Oh yeah.
Every iteration of
Mhm.
him, he's just outright crazy, right? But
Well,
there
yeah.
is like some vulnerability to him as well, right? There is
Hmm.
something up that is hurt or broken in that character that makes him feel like it's that he should be behaving this way. And right. So,
Well, yeah. Well, and then so does that mean that the Joker deserves a chance at grace, because his downfall arc is so, and again, I think that this tendency to give villains a pass comes from people writing such believable downfalls that do instill empathy in the reader or the listener or the watcher, right? And
right,
you get to where, well, maybe if I, fell into a vat of acid, how would I feel, or whatever. Do you know
right.
what I mean?
So that's
And
an
yeah.
yeah, that's another key, is that when you're writing a villain, you have to choose, am I gonna redeem this villain or are they just evil? And if they are just evil, you have to have a believable downfall. You can't just be
Mm,
like all of a sudden some kid, like, your character who's like Harry Potter comes in and just all of a sudden knows magic, and he just says something and all of a sudden Voldemort's gone. No, like, we had to have
mm,
this whole, like, him training, and like it was not easy, like that makes it more redeemable. But if you want a redemption arc, again, that's got to be believable too. It can't be the
mhm.
person be evil, 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 and then, oh, you know what? I do love Jesus. Let's change this. That's not that's not realistic, and that's not how it works. So,
No,
the
no.
the last thing I want to say too, before, when we're talking about writing them, is that
Mm,
you can write an evil character without glorifying evil. So you
mm,
can show like some redemption. You can show some backstory. That's all good and evil, good and fine, but do not glorify the evil part of it. Like, we
mm,
can like someone who's a bad, evil character, like Jason said earlier that he hates Umbridge too, but he loves to hate her, whatever. Like, she's such a great villain. We can say that someone's a great villain, we're not glorifying the things that she does. We don't think it's
Mhm.
okay that she tortured Harry Potter and like when she was punishing him, and none of those things are fine, right? So just make sure that you don't cross that line into making it cool, whatever evil they're doing.
Yeah, like focus on the consequences of the actions,
Yes.
the heart behind them, and show the destruction instead of making it seem glamorous, or
Right.
um, don't admire the power of don't
Yeah.
set your readers or listeners up to revel in the power and
Right.
things like that.
Overall, the big message that we're giving is when writing your villain, a faith-driven villain, whether if you're writing faith-driven fiction, it should be written with intentionality. Like you can't just
Hmm.
kind of throw it in there. You need to know what their backstory is, why they're evil, and whether or not you're going to redeem them or not. And use them again, like we always say, if it doesn't move the story forward, it doesn't belong in your story. So use them to move the story forward, to affect your character arc of your main character or something like that. But it has to be done with intentionality.
Yeah, and some purpose besides just being a device for conflict.
Yes.
Although they are a great device for conflict, as I sit here and consider, ooh, the possibilities,
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. I mean, you talk about hurting your characters. Well, introduce a villain to hurt them.
Hmm. I kind of like
Hmm.
a good villain.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah, I'm curious now about what it would be like to really write one, because I have too many. I see, and this is where the advice to write a villain. Like too many of mine are like man against self or man against
Hmm.
circumstance. So fun to have a good villain.
Yeah. I mean, and that's your comfort zone and that's okay. Maybe that's just how you write, but it would be probably fun for you to even like sprint a few villains and see if it's something
Yeah,
you want to explore.
branch
Again,
out.
yeah, again, it isn't something you have to do. If you're sitting here and you're a writer and you're like, I never write villains and it doesn't fit my writing, but I guess Jen said I have to, so I'm gonna do it. No, but it might be fun. So you might want to just play around with it.
It's a good way to distract yourself from your current work in progress. Also,
Always looking for those, right?
always, always. All right. Well, I'm very happy that we got through the meat of our episode. Please let us know if you have any questions about this in our Facebook group or if you want to further discuss. But for now, we're going to move on to the feeding of the backs, which is where we read our sprints that we wrote before the show started. Jen and I both wrote these yesterday, I guess, but we didn't edit them, and we're bringing them here to read live on air for the first time ever. And Jen, you kind of hinted at what our topic was today,
Yeah.
but
So I wrote
lay it
mine
on.
today. I wrote something
Oh,
different
today,
yesterday
today.
because
Okay.
I didn't look at our outline again. So
Okay.
my bad.
Gotcha.
All right. So the our prompt today is rewrite a story from the villain's point of view, from
Mm,
the villain's POV. So I chose one of my characters, one of my villains from my upcoming book, Forgiving Sarah. So,
mm,
hello, darling. Beatrice bristled but said nothing. Not speaking to me today? Francis asked, his tone lighter than she knew to be true. Nothing Francis said to her was pleasant. Not anymore. Beatrice shrugged. I think I've decided not to talk to you ever again. That would probably make both of us happier. It wouldn't make me happier. It was said so simply, without malice or sarcasm, and so softly that Beatrice wasn't certain it hadn't been her imagination. But words were only words, and actions were language that both she and her husband had been speaking very loudly to one another. It was time that their actions matched their words. Beatrice turned to Frances, hands folded demurely at her stomach in a way that she hoped looked serene, not like an attempt to keep them from shaking, which was actually the truth. I wanted a divorce. Did he flinch? She wasn't certain, but for a split second she thought she saw a flinch. She had expected relief, but his face was so emotionless that she wasn't certain what emotion he was experiencing. Mother would never allow it. His mother, of course, the only woman in his life whose feelings he ever cared about. But Beatrice had anticipated this response. All right, then, not a divorce, but a separation. I'm listening. You send me to the townhouse in New York, with an allowance, of course, and you remain here to have whatever dalliances you desire. And you're able to have any affairs you wish in New York? His tone had taken on a hint of anger, and her emotions fed off of it. That's rich, Francis. You accusing me of infidelity. You know I've never been unfaithful to you. Not for lack of you trying with my brother. She huffed, as if you noticed. She regretted the words as soon as they left her mouth. You wanted me to notice? 3, 2, 1.
Hmm. This is interesting because I know what I know having read the book. I just want to know, like, would this have been in the future? Was this something that had been happened before? Like, I just am curious about that. But maybe you weren't thinking about that. You were just writing.
No, I absolutely know when this happened. You want me to answer now?
Oh, yeah. Tell me.
So I think I want to write a few chapters with Beatrice and her husband that I'm going to give away when someone finishes the book. So this happens actually at the end of the book. So the story is still happening. So it kind of happens
Mm,
within it. So, but it's something that happens
mm.
like off screen, quote unquote. So I've been thinking about this for a while, but I haven't actually
Yeah.
tried writing it. So here we go.
That makes a lot of sense too, based on the what's happening toward the end of the book and her
Mm-hmm.
disenchantment and all of that. So yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
really appreciated that insight,
Thanks.
and hopefully it'll inspire everybody to pick up the book because if you know Beatrice, then you're gonna really enjoy coming back and hearing this. All right.
I hope you
Uh,
hate Beatrice.
yeah,
And then when
yeah.
you read this, maybe you'll be like, okay. Like I want you to hate her because she's pretty evil. But thanks, Jamie. I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, sorry. I
That's
really
okay.
did, as I was listening to it, have questions too about her, like, and why she acts the way she does. Like, if she
Mm-hmm.
was more well loved by her husband. But I have other comments that I would like to take offline about her husband and some things that I will tell you offline.
Okay. Because the book's
Okay.
not out yet.
Yes, correct.
Right.
No
All right. Right.
spoilers or whatever. Okay.
Right. All right.
So,
What'd you write?
okay, I wrote, I'm going to see if you can figure it out from, I'm sure you
Okay.
can. All right.
Okay. I'm
And again,
excited.
this is write a scene from the perspective of a villain, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was all for a basket of goodies.
Mm-hmm.
My humiliation, my exposure, my eventual demise, all of it. For what? I'll tell you for what. For a half dozen oatmeal raisin cookies, 7 chocolate drops, and a slice of county fair blue ribbon winning boysenberry pie. Grandma was choked down. Not the worst meal I'd had since beginning my low carb journey, but pretty close. I had no moral misgivings about wolfing her down. She was in hospice anyhow, and all I did was move up her timeline a little bit. And I had no intentions to harm that snotty little girl either. I just wanted those goodies. I knew what she had in that basket because I'd happened to have been passing by her cottage as it was being packed. That is a lie. I had not just been passing by. I had been drawn there by the scent of that pie cooling on the window ledge. Its scent had reached me where I stood, staring down at the meat I'd hunted with loathsome disdain. I was more energetic and svelte than I had been since my juvenile period, but ironically, now that it was easier than ever to procure game, I was tired of this all-meat existence. So when the smell of fresh fruit simmered in sugary syrup and encased in a golden flaky crust hit my nostrils, you can bet I loped along to suss out the source of my enchantment. The pie was an easily refused temptation as it sat there in the window, what with its proximity to the man and his formidable wife who inhabited the place. But as I spied from the cover of a nearby bush, that woman took the pie and the other aforementioned delectables and placed them carefully into a basket. This she then handed to the child, whose comings and goings were well known to me. I knew exactly the destiny of that picnic basket and the treats therein, and it angered me to think of such delights rotting on the counter of a woman too old and sick to enjoy them. Still, I resisted. I told myself I did not want to undo all the hard work I'd done by sticking to my zero-carb regime so faithfully. And even as I padded along behind the little girl, I convinced myself that we just happened to be going the same way. When I overtook her, I reasoned that I just naturally had a quicker pace. And when I started a conversation with her about where she was going and for what purpose, I told myself I was just being friendly. And then the timer went off.
Oh my gosh, it's so good, Jamie. You have to finish it. Oh, I immediately knew what villain it was. It was so good. He's a keto wolf. Actually, no, he's a carnivore wolf, which they actually
Yes.
are because he's zero carb. Oh my gosh, that's so good. And the only reason that he did all the things he did is because he wanted some carbs. So good. That
Yeah,
is
that
so
was a lot of
awesome.
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
I
was
like writing
great.
that.
We should do more things like this. That was so
Mhm.
much fun. Oh
It
gosh.
was a good exercise too, because first of all, you had to, like you said, picking a villain was difficult. And again, that's
Mhm.
why I thought you might write about the big bad wolf too, because to me, like I didn't even think about like Javert. I didn't think about any of
Yeah.
these ones we talked about in our outline, but that's what you
Mhm.
get for planning it, days before you do it. So
Right, way in advance. Mhm.
hmm
Yeah, but I'm glad you didn't because that was just gold. And Catherine agrees. She says you need to finish that.
I wanted to keep writing. I was really
Mhm.
enjoying it. I was in a groove. Thanks
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah, that was really enjoyable to listen to too. So I really do want you to finish it, even if next week you show up and no matter what our sprint is, ignore it and continue this because it was so funny. Like you were just very witty with it, and it was just I was laughing the whole way through it, and I just want to see how you wrap the whole thing up because he's already dead. You say that at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like this could be spend the next several weeks. I don't even care how long it takes you to
Mhm.
finish it. Every sprint, this is what you should do because so good. Love it.
Thanks. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, and look at us so on time.
I
What's
know.
next for you, Jen?
So I'm working on book cover right now, and I'm very close actually to being finished with that. I've got this new computer, everything linked up. That was the hard part because yes, I had things saved to the cloud, different clouds. I have different clouds for different things, which I know is not smart, but it keeps the pricing down.
Mm,
So opening up like say a new Photoshop, okay, I didn't save so most of that stuff was saved to the Photoshop cloud, which was perfect. But then I open up Scrivener and then I open up Vellum and my old computer, it automatically it would link it to where I had saved in the cloud, but I had to go searching for things. And so I think I have everything all set. It's fine. It's good. Like even little things like that first page in the book, that has, I thought I had one of my books right here that like actually is the image of the logo of the title of the book. And it has
mhm,
my little logo at the bottom. Like I couldn't find it. I mean, I could not find it. I'm like, I don't want to recreate this because all I normally
mhm.
have to do is go in and change the title, right? So I
Right.
found that. So like little things like that. So I think that I'm rocking and rolling now. So finishing up interior and hopefully being able to finish up the cover in the next couple weeks. So
That
that's
is
fine. I'm doing.
really exciting.
Yeah. Yay. What about
We're
you? What
getting
about
there,
you?
Jen.
I know, getting there. What about you, Jamie?
Yeah. I'm compiling some audio that I already have for some of my short stories, and I'm going to put it together with a couple that I already have published. Help Wanted and The Mom Ran
Mhm.
Away from the with the Moon. I already
Mm.
have audio that is available, by the way, if you have the Libby app for your library, or whatever library app you have. If you wanted to hear them, they're very short. Stories. And so the ideal is to kind of make a compilation to where those two very short titles will be put together with some other pieces just to kind of make a longer situation that people might be more tempted to spend an Audible credit on. And I'm recording one quiet afternoon. That's the one with the violence that I was talking about doing the trigger warning with during our
Oh,
FAQ section.
I assume that's
But
the one you're talking about.
and so yeah, I'm working on that, which feels good to be doing something. And then I'm gonna,
Mhm.
maybe try some marketing stuff with it, just to see what I can do. Can I sell them? Whatever. And I figure I would learn things along the way that will help when I have novels to
Mhm.
promote.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Ooh, this discussion made a villain and his redemption story pop into my mind. Yay, yay, Catherine.
Love that.
All right. Hopefully, it'll inspire you and come to our Facebook group and let's keep the discussion going. But I guess that's going to conclude this episode of the Christian Indie Writers Podcast. Until next time, may your pen be prolific, may your deadline be met, and may all of your words honor Christ. Bye.
Bye, everyone.